In the heart of the Mandinka Empire, nestled between rolling hills and the broad river, lay the village of Jangara. Known for its rich history and deep traditions, Jangara was home to a famed griot named Kumba. She was the keeper of the village's history, the one who told the tales of kings and warriors, and the voice of the ancestors. The people of Jangara relied on her wisdom, for her stories were not just entertainment, but lessons passed down through the ages. One year, a great dispute arose between two noble families in the village, the Griot and Keda clans. They had lived in harmony for generations, but a misunderstanding over land near the sacred river began to divide them. Each family claimed a fertile stretch of land, and soon, their peaceful coexistence turned to rivalry. Tensions rose, and arguments broke out in the village square. The elders tried to mediate, but neither family would budge, and the once united village was on the brink of conflict. Fearing that the dispute could tear the village apart, the chief, Sundiata, called upon Kumba to intervene. He knew that the Griot stories had the power to bring wisdom and calm even the most troubled hearts. So one evening, as the sun set behind the hills, the entire village gathered under the shade of the ancient baobab tree to hear Kumba speak. With her kora resting on her lap, Kumba began to play a soft, calming melody. The villagers, who had been arguing just hours before, grew silent as they listened to her music. Then, in her deep and steady voice, Kumba began her story. Many generations ago, she said, there lived two brothers, Sarjo and Jolly, who inherited their father's land. Sarjo took the western half, where the crops grew tall and plentiful, while Jolly took the eastern land, closer to the river. At first, they lived in peace, but soon greed crept into their hearts. Sarjo claimed that the rich crops belonged to him alone, while Jolly argued that the river should be his. The villagers leaned in closer, sensing the lesson within the tale. As their arguments grew, they stopped speaking to one another. Each brother worked his land alone, thinking only of himself. But one night, a great storm came. The winds howled, and the rain poured down, causing the river to rise. Sarjo's crops were washed away, and Jolly's land flooded. Both brothers realized too late that if they had worked together, they could have protected their land from the storm. Kumba paused, her eyes scanning the faces of the villagers. When the floodwaters receded, the brothers understood their mistake. They rebuilt their farms side by side, sharing the land and the river. Only then did they prosper once more. The land does not belong to one man, nor does the river. The earth and water are gifts from the ancestors, meant to sustain all who live upon it. Chief Sundiata rose and thanked Kumba for her wisdom. The Griot and Keda families, moved by the story, realized their mistake. They approached one another, exchanging words of apology, and decided to share the land as their ancestors would have wanted. But Kumba knew that the work of healing was not yet finished. In the months that followed, she visited both families regularly, sharing more stories of unity and cooperation, reminding them of their shared history. The village began to thrive again, but Kumba felt there was one more story that needed to be told. At the next harvest festival, with the entire village gathered, Kumba once again took her place under the baobab tree. This time, her kora's melody was light and playful, and the children gathered at her feet. She began another tale. Long ago, when the animals could speak, there lived two great leaders, Simba the lion and Kina the elephant. Simba ruled the savannah with strength and courage, while Kina guarded the forest with wisdom and patience. Though they lived in different lands, they respected one another and often met to discuss the balance of nature. The villagers smiled as they pictured the majestic lion and the wise elephant. One year, a terrible drought struck the savannah. The rivers dried up, and Simba's pride grew weak with thirst. Desperate, Simba went to Kina and asked for help. Without hesitation, Kina led Simba and his pride to the forest's hidden springs, sharing the water with them. Through their cooperation, both the savannah and the forest survived. Kumba paused, letting the lesson sink in. Strength alone is not enough, nor is wisdom by itself. But when strength and wisdom walk together, they can overcome any challenge. The Griot and Keda clans, like Simba and Kina, each have their own strengths. But only together can they protect what is most precious. The village chief, Sundiata, stood and declared, "Let this be a lesson to us all. We are stronger together than we are divided." The Griot and Keda families smiled at each other, knowing that the story of Simba and Kina was a reflection of their own journey. From that day on, they worked together, sharing the land and the water, ensuring that their village would prosper for generations to come. In the years that followed, Jangara became known as a place of harmony and cooperation. The once disputed land by the river was transformed into a shared space, where both families planted crops and built irrigation channels. Their children grew up together, unaware of the conflict that had once divided their ancestors. Kumba, the wise Griot, continued to tell her stories, reminding the people of the wisdom of their ancestors. When she passed away, the village mourned deeply, but her spirit lived on in the stories she had shared. The next generation of Griots took up her mantle, keeping the lessons of unity and cooperation alive. And so, the village of Jangara thrived, its people living in harmony with one another and with the land, just as their ancestors had intended.